Yep.
Perfect. All right. Thanks for joining us tonight. Coach will make an opening statement, and as usual, we'll take questions and hit the raise your hand function. Coach?
We went back to Neyland last night and had somewhat of a scrimmage. Got to get in probably somewhere around 40 to 44 plays in situational football, but it was good to do. Obviously, it was pretty sloppy, to be honest. Lots of penalties, especially on the offensive side, false starts, which just goes back to team takeoff, not having some guys in there, being consistent with cadence or, offensively we put the ball on the ground a few times. Defensively, again, the things that you think would show up when you've not had a chance to go live in a very long time is missed tackles. So we have a whole lot of things that we really need to improve on over the next 2 weeks, and we've got to work hard to do that. Obviously, I would suspect that our plan will obviously change a little bit as we move closer to the game. I don't feel like we have the luxury of just strictly doing like an in-season practice, probably for the first couple of weeks. We really need to kind of stay in camp form and focus on fundamentals. We have some experience at some positions, but yet at others we have lots of inexperience, and we've got to create some consistency, some chemistry in all three phases. But there definitely has been some bright spots with some guys that we didn't know a whole lot about. And those guys have got to continue to gain knowledge of the position that they play, which will give them a chance to contribute this year. And we, as we get some of these guys back, we really need to focus on special teams. It's probably been the biggest battle for us over the last 10 to 14 days is being kind of creating the same unit out there on the special teams and kind of taking the next steps. With that, I'll take any questions.
All right, questions. We'll start with Vince Ferrara.
Coach, two things. One, would you like to see SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey step in and try to help you guys out with the Cade Mays appeal? If so, have you guys looked into that or approached that? And then the second thing is, have you been able to get at least some of the guys that were out last weekend start to trickle back and be available for you?
Well, I have specifically not spoken to Greg about it. Obviously have spoken to William King, who represents the football side. And, I know how this goes. There's all kind of policies, right, and rules that have been voted on over the years. And I understand that the time that some of these rules were voted on, why they were, but here's the but though. All right. But, okay. With what's going on in our country right now, over the last 6 months with a pandemic, there's probably not one family in America that has not suffered in the last 6 months. It's unusual times. There's a big part of all this that I've been very concerned about with all of our players and all of our young people is mental health. I can't imagine being a child or, from, 5 or 6 to age 25 or 30, that they feel like their youth is being taken away, the things that they're used to doing. So with that, we've got everybody that's playing NCAA football this year. Their eligibility doesn't count. So everybody on our team can come back and play another year. A senior can be a senior again. A freshman can be a freshman again. And this is not just about Cade. I would say everybody that tried to transfer. To me, it would be foolish for anybody that's capable of enabling this. It'd be foolish of us not to do that just for what's right.
And then the second question, have you gotten any of the guys back available that weren't available to you last weekend?
Well, we've had so many guys out. I can't keep up with who's available and who's not available. And it changes by the day. So to be specific on names, my days have really ran together when it comes to that. So I probably wouldn't be much good.
We'll go to Trey Wallace, followed by David Ovens.
Jeremy, anything you got to take away from the quarterbacks last night and the wide receivers, how they're working together, and are we getting any kind of closer? I know you can't do live game action, but do you feel like the guys behind Jared Garantano are taking the steps they need to be that number 2 guy this year?
Well, we've really had a lot of offensive players out, so it's been very tough to create some chemistry on that side of the ball. You know, whether it's in the O-line or running backs or wide receivers. So, but I feel like these guys have continued to improve every day. It's been exciting to me to watch them do that because they've had some adversity during this camp, and I'm sure there'll continue to be adversity throughout the season. But it's been good to see those guys on the offensive side respond. We're nowhere where we need to be consistent-wise. You know, some of our older guys have 2 or 3 good plays and they have a bad one, and 2 or 3 good plays and a bad one. And it's hard to sustain offensively, to sustain drives, and that's something that we're going to have to be able to do. So got a lot of work there. And you know, we've got to really kind of hone in here in the next 10 days, and we need to make strides as a football team in all 3 phases in the next 10 days, you know, because there's going to be a lot of work that's got to get done.
David?
Jerry, have you guys had to have any coaches quarantined, and you'd have to, who would be the interim head coach of this team?
Well, T's the assistant head coach. So, you know, I would it would probably Jim Chaney. You know, I think he's the winningest coach in the history of Tennessee football at 1-0. So I know he would not want that. He's going to take that mark with him for the rest of his life. So, you know, he would absolutely be out. So obviously would be T.
We'll go to Mike Wilson, followed by Wes Rucker.
Yeah, Jeremy, with so many players in and out, do you explore making guys like Alante or Jeremy Banks or Jordan Allen into 2-way guys just to kind of pad depth, or would that further kind of exacerbate the chemistry issues you're talking about?
No, we've not worked anybody both ways. You know, there's probably times in special situations that we could use other guys, but we've really not done that. We've really been trying to stick to the basic fundamentals, keeping our schemes very simple. So, number 1, we can hang on to the football. 2, maybe cause some turnovers and get guys to play fast.
Hey, Jeremy, when you're talking about kind of the contact tracing and everything, have y'all been able to have discussions with the league about making that more of a uniform policy for everyone, or is that just not possible to do?
You know, I'm no expert when it comes to that, but I do believe that contact tracing is obviously different from state to state.
All right, let's go to Rob Lewis and then back to Vince.
Coach, you were pretty critical of the defensive line last week. Did you see any improvement in the scrimmage last night?
You know, there was a couple of guys that showed improvement to me. Prime Garland, I thought had his best practice. Jaquan Blakely continues to work hard. He'd been out a few days, but he was back. So we're taking baby steps up there, and we've got to continue to do that. So you know, the next several practices are really big practices for those guys. We need to get out of the baby steps and probably start taking some leaps, you know.
Coach, a follow-up on the contact tracing. Have you and the staff been able to maybe pinpoint where some of that is traced back to? Is it from contact within the facility? Is it from contact with people outside of it? Because if it's football activities that you have the contact tracing, that could be something that maybe could resurface quite a bit during the regular season. Any thoughts on that?
No, our contact tracing mainly has been roommates. So, you know, I think in some states it's 6 feet without a mask for 15 minutes, but here in Knoxville, it's that we've got the biggest hurdle has been actual roommates, whether they live there or not all the time.
We'll go to Brent Hubbs and then Gustavo.
Coach, when players are out in the quarantine, what can they do? Can you work them out in any way, shape, or fashion? And how concerned are you about injuries with those guys when they're not on the practice field for 2 weeks because they've been in quarantine situations?
Well, you're talking about the non-COVID, just the folks that have been in quarantine for social tracing?
Yes, sir.
Well, you're allowed to let them work out with your strength staff, but they've got to be in a totally separate group. They can't be in the building at the same time, you know, as anybody else. So, but there probably is something to that. You know, you know, football is a unique game with unique movements. You know, there's lots of muscle memory there. So not being able to really practice football, you know, there's some possibility with that for sure.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brent, if you got a follow-up.
I was just going to say, as a follow-up, how do you keep, you know, many of the questions on here have been about contact tracing. How do you keep that from being the overriding theme with your players and that become the story with your players as you get ready to play? How do you not let that become such a distraction?
Well, it's no distraction to us. We take whoever's there each day and we work hard to make them be the best players they can possibly be. Our number one thing here is protect our players. It's the number one thing. And I'm not sure that maybe we've had a few more numbers as far as tracing. We've tested a lot, and we might have tested more than anybody else out there. I have no idea, but we've done a lot of testing to make sure that we're trying to create the proper environment because the safety's been the number one priority for us. You know, I realize that we're getting ready to start a football season, but we're working hard to put the best product we can out there on the field, and we've tried to follow the rules exactly as they've been presented to us, and we'll continue to do that.
Gustavo?
I mean, following up on the Brent's question, in terms of keep you guys focused, you know, with so many distractions off the field, but keep focus on the field, you know, keep the mentality, keep the strength going. How you and your athletic staff keep the players focused on the field, you know, to keep the distractions outside?
Well, I don't know how much distractions there actually been. I mean, we practice every other day. From a standpoint of demand for a fall camp, this has been more like spring ball. So I don't think there's been distractions. I mean, we've been Zoom meetings for a very long time. So the kids that aren't here, they're in the Zoom meeting. So it's not like that they're totally away from a mental standpoint. It's probably from a team building part of it, just having a group of guys together for a long period of time to help create chemistry has been tough to do.
We'll go to Patrick Brown and then back to Trey Wallace.
Jeremy, you mentioned, I think you said the other day you guys weren't going to be able to get all 25 practices in. You guys went back-to-back today. Do you try to squeeze in as many practice days as you can, or do you kind of continue to go practice and take a day off as you kind of stay in camp mode? And do you have a timetable at all on maybe when you'll have most of your team back practicing again?
We definitely probably will not reach 25 practices. I think it's important that we're efficient, with our practice time. From a numbers standpoint, I'm not sure that we're ready to go fall camp back-to-back days. That probably would do more harm than good. So we want to make sure we're efficient so we can keep guys healthy and continue to improve as a football team.
Trey?
Jeremy, have you talked to other SEC head coaches, maybe the ones that you get along with, about their procedures and what they're having to deal with when it comes to contact tracing at their schools? And have you gotten any feedback from maybe the 2 to 3 to 4 guys that you might speak with?
Who asked that question?
That would be Trey Wallace. Yes, sir.
Now, Trey, I talk to these guys quite a bit.
Okay.
But I can assure you, if there was some kind of competitive advantage that somebody else would get, they sure wouldn't be sharing it.
I understand that, but Will Muschamp came out and talked about his 12 guys that were contact traced. So, hey, look, I'm sure there's one guy you at least get along with in this conference.
Hey, let me tell you, every time I played golf with Kirby Smart, he's the only person I ever seen that he always finds his ball in the woods, always.
Okay, so there's no competitive. Okay, I got you. I feel you. I appreciate the honest answer.
All right, we'll go a couple more questions here. We'll go back to David Ubben and then to Gustavo.
Jeremy, big picture, as name, image, and likeness come to college football, what's been your message to guys about monetizing that when they have that ability, when that rule comes into play?
Well, there's lots of things that go into that rule that nobody knows about yet. There's some things that's got to get voted on. There's got to be some clarity from a state level, federal level, and really through the NCAA exactly what you can do. So we're working hard as a university to be ready for that when all this stuff is finalized. But when it comes to recruiting, that's not really been a sales pitch for us.
Last question, Gustavo.
Coach, the ACC starts tonight. Other conferences already started off the weekend. What have you been watching from those games that you might want to observe, you want to learn from other schools that you can implement at Tennessee? They're having to face the same problems and the same issues that you're dealing with. So what kind of things you're kind of watching on those games that you don't want to repeat the mistakes of other schools playing already?
Can you ask that again, Gustavo?
Of course. No. What I say, of course, there are already games been playing college football. What kind of mistakes you don't want to repeat if you are watching those games? If their teams are following the same protocols, the same issues that you're dealing with.
Well, one thing that we've tried to do as a staff is make sure that we've had guys that have watched those games. I've not watched any, and so to see if there's things that come up. So obviously this is it's a new experience for everybody involved. So, we'll get a chance this weekend to watch again, right? So we'll definitely be doing that, or we'll have somebody on our staff be doing that. Can I ask you a question? Have they found that tiger yet?
I don't think so.
I'm serious. I
Yeah.
found my wife called me today, and I missed my noon walk because I was concerned about that tiger.
I think it's hanging out with Jimmy Himes.
You guys have a good day. See ya.
On that, Coach. Good night.